If you went out onto the street and you asked 100 random people, what is the point of a business? I think something like 98 or 99 of those people would tell you the exact same thing. They would say that the point of a business is to make money. If they're feeling intellectual that day, they might tell you, no, the point of a business is to maximize shareholder value or something like that. And I always found that really fascinating, that we all somehow have the exact same default answer to that question. We talk about it like it's some God-given commandment that the point of a business is to make money. But when you really think about it, this is kind of a recent invention, relatively speaking. You know, back in the 30s, there was this debate between these two guys, Burrell and Dodd. And one of them argued that the point of a business is to maximize shareholder value and to make money. And then the other guy argued that no, businesses can be much more complex than that. And there's a responsibility to society. There's responsibility to your local community. It could be about creativity, all of these other things. But over the last few decades, it seems like one of the sides clearly won that debate. Especially in the 70s and 80s, this sort of Milton Friedman style view of business emerged, where the only thing you could be about was trying to make as much money as possible. If I'm being honest, I think the wrong side won that debate. I'm not against making money. I'm all for everybody making as much money as they can. But it just feels so binary that if you want to be in business, if you want to be a business person, you can only care about making money. And if you want to care about anything else, then you should probably go start a nonprofit. Human beings are way more complex than that. Ambition is way more complex than that. You can want to do more than one thing at one time. And that's why recently I've been looking for entrepreneurs that I think do that really well, that allow themselves to own all of their complexity, all of the different things they want to do all at the same time. And that's how I came across Sana. Sana and I grew up in a very similar part of the world. We're the same age. We moved to America at the same time. We started our businesses at the same time. And at the time that Sana and I started our businesses, it was very common to have a nice, gauzy mission statement on your website. But as the years rolled on, most of our companies, those mission statements just slowly slipped off of the website. But Sana's mission statement stayed on. And it got deeper and deeper and deeper into the business. Almost a decade in, Sana's company is more serious, more real about their mission than they were when they started. Sana's mission has been to build a more ethical spice trade. And she has consistently, for a decade, put her money where her mouth is. When you hear Sana talk, you might feel at first like you get it, and you're like, oh, you know, these people like this are great, but they're just very idealistic. This doesn't really work in the real world. I would challenge you to find another entrepreneur that could pull off a business like the one that Sana's running, with all of its operational complexity and all of its challenges. Sana is a real business person. She's a killer. But she's also very real about everything else. She's real about her creativity, and she's real about the mission. She's real about wanting to connect with her community. When you hear Sana talk, you experience the full complexity of human ambition and the full richness of human spirit. I could not be more proud to have Sana on the podcast. And with that, I bring you Sana Javeri Kadri. From WeFunder's office on Mission Street in San Francisco, this is Warm Intro. This is the first episode where I'm wearing a hat. So
because your hair was not hairing this morning?
Because my hair wasn't doing it. And so
You picked a good hat.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. I thought that was a good nod to heritage. It was like you got cool points.
Thank you.
As soon as we walked in towards the water, I actually clocked it. And I was like, that was a smart choice.
Well, I did pick it for this one in particular because you and I both grew up with this brand, and I think it speaks to something I really like about your work, where the whole philosophy of this brand. I have a Royal Enfield that you mentioned.
You do?
For people who are listening, it's a motorcycle company. It's an Indian motorcycle company, and they just have this real philosophy of making beautiful products that the average person could afford. And I'm also wearing a Titan watch. I just love this sort of approach to making things.
And it's proudly Indian.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like Royal Enfield has always been a very Indian brand.
Yeah.
Which feels really good.
If you ever watch one of their like Made in Chennai ads,
No.
they make you tear up. They're
Really?
just so beautifully done. But Sana, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Great to be here.
We do this thing for every episode where we try to come up with one word or sort of one sentence that for us really kind of captures the guests that we're having on.
Okay.
And for you, I kind of kept coming back to this idea of morality. And I find in all the sort of research I did and as I was thinking about it, I find that it's, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think that just sort of tinges everything you've done and how you've had this like strong moral compass through like every stage of your career. I want to try to understand sort of the origins of that. Take me back to Mumbai circa 93, 94, maybe 95, 96. What's the world that you come from? Describe that home to me.
I mean, I definitely always lead with like the coming from privilege. You know, I grew up to upper class parents and I grew up in very much the 0.1% of India, which I unfortunately find a lot of like urban privileged Indians don't disclose.
Yeah.
Like they come to America and they're like, I'm a brown woman of color. And I'm like, girl, like I know what you are at home. Sit down, okay?
Yeah.
So I do feel like that disclosure needs to be the beginning. And I am Hindu Muslim Jain, which in 1993 was not common.
Oh my God.
So I was born during the Hindu Muslim riots, and my dad is half Hindu, half Muslim. And then he married a Jain woman. So I have 2 generations of love marriages that were inter-caste, interreligious.
Wow.
Which both caused a lot of conflict and like made us very different and often the other. So, you know, at school, I think I was like one of 2 part Muslim or full Muslim kids in my whole class. And the only mixed kid at all. And I went to a very like popular, privileged, like fancy school.
Yeah.
So that just tells you how segregated environments get in India. I think the like more privileged things get. Or maybe I think the point is that like at every section of society, especially growing up in Mumbai, there was such intense like religious segregation, and therefore being the mutt that didn't fall into any camp was like a deeply confusing experience.
Yeah. It's I relate to that very much. I just and in particular I relate to how many very wealthy Indians will not acknowledge how wealthy they were. It's apparently everybody was fucking upper middle class because
I'm like, you weren't. We just weren't.
Exactly. It's if you ever look at the data on like what it actually what you need to earn to be middle class in India, it's a massive reality check for most of us.
I mean, I think I know the number. It's like for your family, you're making under 40,000 rupees a month.
Wow.
And that's not a lot of money at all.
Yeah.
You know, what's the math on that in terms of dollars?
$500?
Is that true? Yeah, that's literally true. So to be middle class in India, you have to be making under $500 a month.
Yeah.
AKA like every international student at Cal, at Pomona, at Stanford, where we went to school,
middle class.
Was not middle class, you know? And like it's worth just clearing that up from the get-go.
Well, so this is a perfect setup for what I want to try to understand. So you grow up, mixed religion, mixed caste kid in Mumbai, which is, it's kind of hard to explain until you've been there, like how in your face inequality is in Mumbai, right?
Yes.
What was your, what are kind of the origins of your moral compass? Like to the degree that you can even articulate this, like what were your parents trying to teach you?
Yeah.
What were you learning by osmosis
Right.
in the world
So I
around
feel like
you?
there's three parts to the answer.
Yeah.
One is you're trying to articulate like what that inequality looks like, right? So like we lived in an apartment building that my grandfather was the architect for, which is why he got this apartment. And there was a swimming pool and a beautiful garden that, you know, he designed because he went to Berkeley.
Yeah.
And right next to us was one of the biggest slums,
Yeah.
right on the waterfront. And like in the monsoon, they didn't have toilets and the waves would actually like crash into their homes.
Wow.
And we would be like, oh my God, chai and pakoras and
Oh my
monsoon vibes.
Yeah.
You know, so like the inequality was very obvious. And I don't want to say but, I want to make sure it's an and, like both my parents are architects and they were educated, got their masters here in the US, and they made a very conscious choice in 1991 to go back to India, because there was this feeling that, you know, India has just neoliberalized, it's opened up
Yeah.
to the world, and they had been given some of the best educations that their parents could like muster for them.
Yeah.
So now let's go back to India and like be of service. My dad's mom started Save the Children India,
Wow.
which for a long time was one of the largest NGOs in India. I think there's a lot more now, which is wonderful. So I think at least on my dad's side, the family motto was, okay, we have privilege. Now how can we be of service? And that was told to me from a very young age is you have so much privilege. You're being given access to the best education in the world. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And at the time, I don't think I realized how like iconic that was, because I have friends from who I grew up with who went to the same schools as me, who are now very happy living the like South Bombay, like kiddie party, like AC car to AC apartment
God.
life.
Yeah.
And like, that's fine. And I'm fine with that. But I was raised very differently than that. And I really, I guess, value my parents for doing that.
Yeah, it's. I'm kind of. I'm stunned by how many of us in that sort of like mini sub generation. I think it was our parents, but I think it was also sort of we were raised with these like values of kind of globalism and this sense of like responsibility that you have towards the world. And I'm really struck by how kind of that was like a blip in time, that it seems like it's sort of gone away now.
Totally.
But back,
I think it was 92 to 95,
Yeah.
but I think it was because there was this hope that India was going to like join the rest of the world,
Yeah.
and that like we were the future.
Yeah.
And I think it's why you and I both subscribe to a little bit of this nostalgia for like the proudly made in India. It's like
Yes.
the Titan watch, the Royal Enfield hat. I'm wearing these cardamom earrings.
Yeah.
It's like wanting to like both represent where we come from and be part of the global conversation and not do it in like a deeply shitty way.
Yeah, you're really getting to the core of kind of how I feel about all these things. But as you're coming up, do you have any memories of like for the first time feeling that privilege, feeling like, no, I have something that not everybody has, and that I have a responsibility because of that privilege?
Yeah.
What's the earliest memory you have of that idea?
I think, I mean, maybe to not, the privilege comes later, right? Like then I can like go back like retrospective 2020 and be like, yes, like when I saw my grandfather's Mercedes Benz.
Sure.
But like I wasn't. I was like, it was a nice green car.
Sure.
You know, it was not manly green, but it was pistachio green. But I think really my childhood was more defined by analyzing difference.
Yeah.
So it was that at my dadi's house, we had full fat buffalo milk.
Yeah.
Wealthy Punjabi. My grandfather was doing very well. And then at my nanny's house, there was like the low fat skim cow.
Yeah.
And at our home, there was no yogurt at all because my mother was like Californian lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
And I was tracking that where I was like, what is going on with all these different dahis and yogurts? You know? Or our house had meat and my nanny's house was Jan and there was no meat.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it was more the easiest point of trying to understand like all the complexities of our family was through food. And or like my aunt and uncle had like Nestle dahi, like Nestle yogurt that came in a can or in like the plastic bucket at home, and that was the most aspirational. And it was kind of because they like had like the fancy new money coming in, whereas we were like the old money with like help at home making it for you. So I think a lot of like how when I then came to America 20 years later, how I navigated America was through this same lens of going to the grocery store and being like, so why are they making yogurt pretzels? You know, like, what are those?
This is the best. Have you heard of the Big Mac Index?
Yes. Yes.
You just did a version of that, but with yogurt.
Yeah.
You just did a full readout of socioeconomic differences in India through the lens of yogurt. But I do find that like food is, especially in the context that you and I grew up with, it's so political and it's so it carries a lot of meaning. Like, I mean, this is just a random example, and we can cut this out if it's too big of a diversion. But I've been fascinated more lately by Indian people, and with Zoran, this was very much in the conversation. I am very comfortable double dipping. And I'm very comfortable, like if we're sharing from a big thing of fries, I'll grab a few and I don't care if my hands touch more than the fries that I'm grabbing. And this bothers my American wife and my American friends. But at the same time, they'll share drinks, right? They'll share, like, it'll go around.
Sometimes share apples.
Yeah, they'll
share apples.
They'll take a bite and then
they'll give it to somebody else.
Exactly. And so I should say, before I say the next part, I agree with the science of how Indians do this. Well, I think you wash your hands, man. I don't know what's going on with your mouth. And so I agree with the Indian approach to this, but it wasn't until recently that I realized the reason that so many Indians, the root cause of not wanting to share food, it comes from the caste system, right? As does so much stuff. And so, and that's so ingrained in me. I mean, it's ingrained at a level of disgust, right?
Yeah.
Where that's really, really, really deep. Like,
well, the like upper surface layer is that it is like dirty or unhygienic, and then that has been rooted in science. Who had access to science? Upper caste Indian Americans or upper caste Indians, who had access to go to medical school. People like my grandma, who then proceeded to be like, yes, you can like touch my food and you cannot. Or, the staff must have like separate plates than me and my family. But like the true root of all of that fluff on top was casteism of like your hands, just by being darker and from a certain subgroup, are dirtier and like inherently dirtier than me and my family's hands. So like, yes, my daughter can't lick her fingers, but like she definitely can't eat on the same plate as you. So I don't think people get into that nearly enough, that like the way that we eat is so, especially in India, globally, but especially in India, is defined by caste and religion. And I think there's been this like politicization of vegetarianism, which is rampant right now.
Even the term, you'll see this to people that haven't been to India, restaurants will call themselves pure vegetarian. Well, pure is a very interesting
and like
term.
it's like casteism 101, like the pure association is that like we are a clean establishment where like good people go. Who are good people? Good people are upper caste people. So anyway, I don't want my OCI card to get canceled. So like I can talk about this, but only a little bit.
No, Sana, we're running the risk of both OCI and green card cancellations on this.
I just got my passport. Let's stay here.
Okay. Yeah. This is going to be a tightrope walk this entire podcast. But tell me a little bit about your relationship with food. So, and because I think these are sort of the two things that I've been weighing as I've been preparing for this. On one hand, I think you have just this really acute eye for morality and like how it shows up in these sort of like what others would read as a kind of like mundane social situations. And then I think on the other hand, I just think you've always had this very like rich understanding of food and what it means and kind of how it like how people eat, how different people eat and how they grow their food and what it tells you about them. So tell me about your relationship with food for a second. What were the meals like? You touched on this a little bit. What were meals like at your house? Who was cooking them? Tell me about it.
I mean, I was the kid who at my preschool graduation, nobody could find me because I was in the kitchen eating everybody's snacks. I have always been this kid. My dad had a very certain like budget for in the house when I was younger because fish was, I think, the most expensive thing we brought into the home. But at 2, I was like eating through his entire fish budget. And he was really stressed about it. So I feel like I was born this person where I love food and I thrive on it. And I love navigating my family through food, like navigating my Gujarati Muslim grandfather and Punjabi Pakistani grandmother and Jan grandmother, and like how I got to eat and I have a Mangalorean like cousins and their family, so like just getting to navigate like delicious meals through all their houses, it makes me so happy. I just got back from India like 3 days ago and it was joyous. And I think that it all actually ties into queerness. So John Birdsall, who's this incredible author, has been writing a lot, and he just wrote a book about like the queer origins of the food industry. And basically, like, to me, queerness is 2 things, right? One is it's like noticing difference within yourself. And I think Ocean Vuong has some quote where like what queerness demands of you is innovation, because you're looking at a system that you don't fit into. And you're trying to figure out how you can make it work for you, or how you can like rebuild the system to like survive as a queer person. And I think because of that innovation, queerness like creates room for like delight and juiciness, where it's like, okay, so we're going to throw that whole thing out the window and we're just going to create something that is like much more joyful. And I think that as a result, there has just been this whole history of queer people. And he outlines it in his book that across history, the food industry has moved forward because of like flamboyant gays and like delicious trans people. And, you know, like, and I very much like feel like that is my lineage and that is my ancestry. In that being queer meant that I was like, wait, I don't like this life. I don't want to focus on like becoming an architect or an engineer or a lawyer as is laid out for me, or somebody's wife as like Mumbai patriarchy seems to want. So how do I like completely build from scratch? I like food, okay, but I don't want my like love for food to be overly feminized, where it's like just about providing for my family, or like baking and doing like, you know, things that are considered like women's work in a very derogatory way. So how do I completely reframe that to be like, actually, I want to take the means of production and give it to people in a more thoughtful way. So I think what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way is that like both the work that I do and my adoration for food all also feel very tied into my queer identity, of like constantly like wanting an innovation to live life in a way that is different, and loving differently, obviously.
Well, I love what you're saying. I think it's a thing that I've noticed with my queer friends, that very often I think that this idea of a quarter life crisis is I find it's much more of a straight problem than it is a queer problem, because queer people from a very young age have to deal with identity and have to deal with how they fit in, and are they properly representing themselves. And my dumbass straight friends, myself included, can just roll through 30 years of life before you even had to do any kind of introspection. But actually, I want to. This brings up something interesting, and I want to kind of get your take on this, because a take I've heard related to food is that the cultures of the world and I'm not saying I agree with this, but I want to get your take. The cultures of the world that were relatively impoverished and didn't have access to the best ingredients had to learn to get better at the techniques of cooking, and the standard example people will take is of oxtail. Right. And having to work with not the best cut of meat. And needing to learn to make it really good.
Like scarcity demands innovation.
Exactly. And that the cultures that just had a nice piece of ribeye never really had to get very good at cooking. Is this? Do you fuck with this take? What do you think of this? No. Okay.
I disagree with that take, because pre-colonialism, South Asia was a very wealthy region. There was like tremendous inequality, yes, then and now. And our cuisine was like incredibly well developed, you know? So I don't know. I think this idea that like, you have to suffer to then like innovate and make something beautiful. I actually think that's like Christian guilt. And like that's like some colonial like rebranding of like, y'all suffered and then you innovated so well. Wow, guys. Like, you're welcome. I don't think that's necessary. Nobody got to suffer for things to taste good. Does that mean we should look down upon cuisines that like created beautiful things out of like scarcity? No. You know, and I think maybe that's the reframe, is a lot of Dalit cuisine is really beautiful, right? And is like taking things like snail or offcuts of meat or dried beef and creating deliciousness. And the reframe is that like that needs to be celebrated and honored, whereas right now it's looked down upon. But I don't think intrinsically saying that like we all need to suffer for delicious food is, no. I'm walking away from that. That's just what the white people want us to believe because they don't understand how to season their food. Like, that's that.
Let's fast forward a little bit in the story, right? And so you have this very rich, and like parts of it I can relate to, and parts of it I think are
distinct.
Are distinct and I think so. But you have this like really sort of rich and complex upbringing. Fast forward, how old were you when you moved out to the U.S.?
18.
18, right? To go to school. And what was your sense of your life at the time? Did you think this was a temporary thing and you would be coming back to India? Or did you know that this was it and now you're going to be living in America?
We have to backtrack to being 14, unfortunately.
Okay.
So when my mom, like, I think she started doing better and she with her career, and she wanted to do what she thought was best for me. And so she sent me from my like fancy but like normal school to Dhirubhai Ambani, which is like a very fancy international school with like a capital F. And it was like New Money City. It was co-ed. I used to go to an all-girls school. And I think the like simple reality is that I was a queer kid raised in a very progressive family, and I went to an environment where I didn't fit. And it ended very poorly, in that like I was being bullied, I had a very abusive relationship, and I started like using. So at 14, to have all three of those things happen, not good. And eventually the decision that my family and I took together, which was wonderful, was that I would just leave school and homeschool myself. So 9th and 10th grade, I literally hung out at home with IGCSE textbooks. My parents both work, like they were at work all day. And then like I taught myself how to photograph because I was bored, and started photographing, like doing darkroom stuff. So I had been living like in isolation for 2 years. I then applied to the United World Colleges, which is this like really magical high school that is all over the world. 200 kids, 100 different countries, full scholarship. I thought I would get into the one in India, which has more spots for Indians. I magically got sent to the one in Italy, like on the Adriatic coast in a castle.
Oh my God.
Like bloody game changing. So this like bullied, sad kid who has spent her 14, 15, 16 talking to nobody my age, like pretty much only hanging out with my mom, my dad, and like my mom's gym trainer for company. Now gets to go to like one of the best like schools and international schools in the world in a castle.
Oh my God.
So life changed drastically. And I got to completely reinvent myself. I went to a place where I didn't even know I was queer yet, but like I went to a place where like that was normal. And that was like actually not like bad at all. I got to work on a farm as part of my work study. I was working on vineyards and olive groves. It just like, I just cannot overstate how transformational it was to get the hell out of South Bombay. Man, it changed everything. So then at 18, when I came to California, I was already like what this amazing progressive high school had molded me to be. And UWC's whole motto is using education and like this really diverse environment to create like future leaders who push forward social change specifically, where they're like, we're giving you the best education ever, use it for good, or like you failed at the matrix, you know? So it's not the kind of bougie boarding school where they're like, get into an Ivy League school and then like make your daddy proud, you know? Like it was a very different experience of high school. And so I joke to this day that like the work that I do today is exactly what UWC trained me to do. Like they said to do it and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll make you guys proud. Like, thanks.
Wow, no, you came to America with a fully formed like a mission.
Yes. And I came to college being like, I want to work in the food industry.
Yeah.
I know that. I'm going to adjust my major to like weave my skill set together.
Yeah.
And I literally majored in what I do now.
Sana, can I take an aside quickly to tell you about what I was thinking about when I got to America? So you and I are the same age. When I got to America, I went to Berkeley and I wanted to study mechanical engineering. And I had two numbers in my head at the time. I looked up how much the average Berkeley mechanical engineer made after graduating. The number was $72,000. And the second number I looked up was how much a cherry red Mercedes C-Class convertible cost. And that number was $32,000. And all that mattered to me was that the first number was higher than the second number. That's what I came in with, okay? So you were about 25 years ahead of me in any kind of sort of moral understanding of the world.
You seem to have caught up just fine.
I'm trying. I never bought the red Mercedes for what it's worth.
I figured, I hoped.
Yeah, exactly. What would have been incredible is I should have just stayed focused, and if I had just locked in, Sana, I could have had a red Mercedes. You could have had the red
Mercedes, and then you would have had no problems in life.
Exactly. I think the most criminal part of all of that is actually the cherry red. I think that's the part I should be the most embarrassed.
I feel like that's like such a divorced second wife daydream. Like, where did you get that from? Desperate Housewives?
Sana, we need to. This is all. Can we do like a therapy session
afterwards? Okay.
No, right now. Like, Sana, I cry fairly often, but the crying that I'm most fascinated by is when it catches me off guard, and nothing catches me more off guard than how I like ads that are specifically targeted towards men having a midlife crisis. So I'll cry at a Mazda commercial where a man buys a convertible after he sends his daughter off to college, and I'm 30 years old. Why is this hitting me like this?
Well, all the dots are connecting. You're a straight man having your quarter life crisis because you didn't develop your identity when you were 15.
Yes.
Whereas like I was a gay little kid who was bullied all the time, so I had to develop my identity when I was 16. So the moral of the story is be gay is better.
Fuck, you just figured it out for me. No, but truly, I will... I think it's I could wax poetic about this for a while, but like I do think that what I like about those ads, what I like about these cars, even I own a very normal car, I don't do anything like that. It's not cherry red, it's maroon. No, I'm kidding. No, it's I own just a regular SUV, but it's I do think that like there's something about it that's not, I think, exclusive to men. It's just a very human thing of like this deep sense of responsibility that so many people move through life with, right? And for a lot of people, you constantly optimize for practicality and responsibility of your life. And then you get to this place by the time you're in your early 50s, mid 50s. And I know a lot of men, I know a lot of women who've gone through this. And it's the first time that you're really able to do something for yourself. Yeah. And I think that moment speaks a lot to me. That is my intellectualized version of liking trashy cars. But let's bring this back to you. So when you showed up to America, what was that? Tell me about those early months. What did that feel like?
Oh man. So my parents had come here for grad school. They were in Michigan, and then they went and worked in Berkeley at Cal, actually.
Oh, wow.
So my mom was a TA in the Women's Studies department at Cal. And they describe it as the most transformative 4 years of their lives because it's where they both transformed into like self-described feminists. They lived together before they got married, which is like, woo, risque.
Wow.
And they like made all these like hippie, progressive, cool friends who are like Cal and Michigan professors to this day. So I remember just thinking that like I was going to get to America and like my parents, it was just all going to work. I was going to like make my cool progressive friends. I was going to like discover who I am. And instead I like showed up in SoCal suburbia. I went to Pomona College and I was just like, what in the like Kleenex, vodka, yogurt, pretzels, like what is all of this and why am I here?
Yeah.
And I also thought that I was going to the set of the OC. And I wasn't, and at the time I wasn't sure whether I was in love with like Ryan or Marissa, who were like the two main characters. I was like, I both like the wife beater and I like the short skirt. So like, I love it all. I want that. Okay. And instead like Pomona College, bless
You
them.
got neither the Whitebeard nor the
It was
short
not none of the above, and it was certainly not the OC.
Yeah.
There was no ocean. The ocean was 2 hours away, and I didn't know how to drive.
Yes.
So it was a lot of culture shock.
This is a major part of false advertising with California.
Right?
I am a big California chauvinist. I think California is amazing.
Same. I'll live here the rest of my life, and we were lied to.
We were lied to. Everybody was lied to. It's because if you show up in Modesto, it is not what you're expecting.
So my phone number to this day is 909,
Okay.
which refers to the Inland Empire. Oof. And if you had a 909 area code and you lived in the Inland Empire, you were cool because now it's 951, I think. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, it's cool for like tattoo artists and truck drivers and me. Like, that's my subgroup.
Yes.
And that's where I came to America.
Yeah.
So it wasn't maybe like the best place for me. But what I did is I was able to take a year off of school and I went to New York, and my parents were like, you want to take a year off? That's on your dime, bro. Yeah. And I worked at an urban farm. I waitressed at like a fancy restaurant, and I started like working as a baker in a bakery. And it was hilarious to realize that at like 19 and like not knowing shit, people were so desperate for like my manual labor that they would hire me and pay me $20 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, y'all want to pay me? Like, I don't know anything. I've never had a job before.
Yeah.
But they were like, yeah, please, like, come bake for us. So I was like commercially baking like Brooklyn blackout cakes and peanut butter cookies for this like bougie bakery at 19 years old. And I think it gave me a real like, okay, I now understand how like capitalist food industry America works. I've worked in a farm, that didn't work. Like they don't make money. I worked in a bakery, that doesn't seem to work either. I worked in a restaurant, that's terrible too.
Yeah.
So how are people getting fed, and how can I get a job that like doesn't burn me all over my arms? Or like, you know, I'm like working from sun up to sundown for no money.
Yeah.
So I do think that then I applied my last 2 years of college to being like, I just have to figure out the equation. I want to work in food. I want to make like a semi-decent living. My bar was so low. It was like, if I make $40K, I'll be fine.
That is more than what it costs to get
72.
a cherry red Mercedes.
So I was okay. Yeah.
But, at what point did you just know that it's going to be in food? And because it seems like by this point, you've already decided you're going to be working in food. You're just trying to figure out what part of the supply chain.
That was by the time before I came to college. Wow. Like I was working, I think spring break of my senior year of high school, I worked on an olive grove, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And we were like cooking all these amazing meals with the family, and like, I'm still in touch with that family to this day. They're in Tuscany. I mean, in retrospect, like, oh my God, best life ever.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how good I had it.
Sure.
And I was just like, I want to do this. Like, I want to make kale soup, and I want to grow olives and like press them into oil. This sounds great. But then the reality of like, you don't have land, you don't know how to make a living, you have no marketable skills. So then college was really just an exercise in, I'm surrounded by really smart people. Surely if I ask enough questions, they'll help me figure it out. Yeah. And I started the Diaspora 9 months out of college. Wow. So I was like trying to figure it out, you know, kind of all along.
I'm so impressed by how clear of a sense you had of what you wanted to do. And it was just a matter of time before you figured it out.
Part of that, like, I think it sounds nice then. Back then, I like felt like I was a hot mess. And I kind of was. I mean, I was definitely a hot mess too. I'm thinking about like me working in the mission in my early 20s, and I'm like, oh God, that was so bad.
Oh, really?
I think, yes, compared to other people in their early 20s, I was on a path. And I think externally, people saw that. Like I talked to one of my close friends, but then mentor Sita Bhaumik, who ran the People's Kitchen Collective, and she was like, Sana, you graduated college and like you moved to San Francisco, and like we could all see you had a plan. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
But I didn't perceive myself that way. I perceived it that I was like a fucking mess. Yeah. And that I didn't have my shit together. And I think my mom was very hard on herself, and she definitely like downloaded that into my brain anatomy. So I was like very like pushing to keep it moving.
This is I can really relate to that. I started my company when I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
And we have some interns and that I'll work with every once in a while. And they're 21 and 22, and I look at them, and I hope none of them listen to this, but I feel like, oh my God, I would never trust you with millions of dollars. Why did anyone think that was a good idea to do that? But I think, the point being, like, I didn't feel it at the time. I also felt like I was all over the place, and But looking back, it was nuts.
Had more of your shit together than you think, right?
Exactly. But I also, the other thing that I'm really struck by what you're saying is how much that sense of responsibility that we're talking about. The two types of people I've seen that be very heavy in are Indians and Catholics. Have this deep sense of duty and responsibility. And unfortunately, the thing that does seem to come with is this deep sense of guilt that you're never doing enough. That you're not put together enough, that you're not focused enough on helping people and all that. But let's talk about diaspora.
There's antidepressants for that. I highly recommend.
I'm told there are, yeah. So you start Diaspora 9 months out of college. You're 22 years old, 23?
I think I was 22, yeah.
Yeah, and tell me about the origins of Diaspora. What is the sort of the insight about the world, or what is this feeling that you had about the world that led to it starting? And what was the first version of Diaspora? Like, just give me the early...
So I think there's like what was the problem we were trying to solve, and what was the like space I was trying to create in the world.
Yeah.
Two separate things. The problem was I was working at Byrite down the street from here, and on my commute from 16th Street BART station to Byrite to the office, I would pass by like coffee shops and tea shops, and I kept seeing golden milk in the like menus, and I would be like, what is that? Why is that $8?
This was the rage in
2016, man. It was like flying.
Yeah.
And so I think one day I was so homesick because, first job out of college, didn't have money for a flight home yet, all of those things. And so I like actually paid the $8 and tried one. I was like, like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I think after that I went into the store, Byrite, and like walked around the spice shelves, and I was like, wait, we like source like the best peaches known to mankind from Masumoto Family Farms, which is currently peach season. We source like the most beautiful California citrus, and our spice aisle is like kind of grim.
Yeah.
Like it's, those little green boxes of spices that like mystery origin, you have to pay $3. You don't know why. It's just like powders you add to your food.
Yeah.
So I think there was this like a little ding of, I'm seeing things being sourced beautifully, but when they're coming from the global south, or when they are placed in the ethnic food aisle, they are sourced poorly.
Yeah.
And of course, like in the past 9 years, like things have changed drastically, which is wonderful. I think like the international food aisle is officially the cool aisle of the grocery store, and like that took a lot of like anti-racist work to get here. Shout out to like all of us in the CPG industry. So that was like the problem I wanted to solve. I was like, I don't see things being sourced very well. I don't see good spices. And I'm like in the nicest like grocery store, I think maybe in America. Yeah. So we should fix that.
Yeah.
But I think on the other side, I was seeing that, the beautiful bean to bar chocolate companies, the third wave coffee companies, like there was a lot of like beautiful stuff being sourced, especially here in San Francisco. But the people that grew the food or grew the ingredients, that grew the coffee beans, always looked very different from the people roasting the coffee beans.
Yeah.
Or making the chocolate bar. And there was an aesthetic, right? It was like white with a beard and had access to like a lot of millions of dollars. Yeah. And often like liked talking about like Ethiopia as an origin, or Tobago as an origin for either coffee or chocolate. But do we know anything about like why coffee is so good coming out of Ethiopia? No. There was just like complete removal of cultural understanding of like why are the most beautiful beans in the world coming from Ethiopia, and what is it about the Ethiopian people, soil, terroir, culture that is responsible for that? And you don't take the interest to tell those stories unless you are from that culture or you deeply love them, Yeah. And so I think when I started thinking about telling stories about spices or like ingredients coming out of South Asia, I was actually initially thinking that maybe I would run a sesame business, because I had this fun fact that sesame is indigenous to South Asia. And I love South Asia. I'm obsessed with like this land we come from that is like so diverse and fertile and beautiful. And so I want to tell my turmeric farmer's story, and I have been telling his story for the past 9 years with like a level of obsession, because like I think he's the coolest dude ever, you know? And I just think his family is beautiful. And the food that they make is mind-blowing. So that's the stories I wanted to tell. And I just felt like nobody else would do that and run a spice company, you know? They would like slap a Andhra Pradesh origin tasting notes of like burnt fig, but not talk about like who grew it and why they grow it and like why it's the best variety and like why it's indigenous to those hills and that soil. So that's the cultural piece.
Yeah.
I kind of ranted, sorry.
No, beautiful rant. I think to remove the person from the product is one of the most criminal things that the sort of the Industrial Revolution did, right? And I was coming up my sort of early years of my career. One thing I think we're going to realize, people listening to the podcast realize, is you and I have lived somewhat parallel lives. But, I was in that world, and I was working for a direct-to-consumer coffee company in 2015, 2016. And I remember they would talk about this fact all the time. They were like, the country that drinks the most coffee in the world is Finland. And I was like, well, Finland hadn't grown a fucking one coffee bean in the last several hundred years, okay? And I remember that fact just stuck with me a lot. They would talk a lot about Finland and Berlin's coffee culture and all this. And I just was like, it's such a crazy divide between where this is being made and how it's being consumed and how it's being
Where's
understood.
the best chocolate in the world made?
Oof, I feel like I'm going to get this wrong. Where is it? Where is the best chocolate made, or where are the best cocoa beans grown?
Exactly. But you know to ask the question.
Okay.
Right? Nobody else knows to ask the question.
Oh, yeah, because they'll say Switzerland or
exactly.
Belgium.
It's Switzerland, Belgium, France makes the best chocolate. They don't grow cocoa beans.
Yeah.
They don't have cocoa beans. They barely know how to roast them.
Yeah.
Their innovation was they added milk because they have cows.
Yeah.
So yes, they make the best milk chocolate in the world because they got milk. But like Mexico has had chocolate culture dating back thousands of years. But like because of racism and colonialism, we don't talk about Mexico's cacao growing and chocolate making culture, which is profound.
Yeah.
Grenada makes beautiful chocolate because they grow cocoa beans.
Yeah.
So I feel like so much of the work I'm always thinking about is like, one, making consumers stop to ask the question you just asked. Like, okay, are you asking where the best chocolate's made, or are you asking where the best cocoa beans are grown?
Yeah.
Because they're completely different things. So that's like pause number one. And then pause number two is, why is that the case? Like, why is it that the best chocolate comes from Belgium? Oh, I think because they were colonizers.
Yeah.
They had all the money.
Yeah.
They took everybody's jewels and they spent it on making milk chocolate. That's not even a joke, That's actually
quite
how the
literally
money
true.
translated.
Yeah.
I went to give a talk in the Netherlands, and they have this beautiful museum in Amsterdam, and I had to give a talk at the museum, and I was giving a talk about decolonizing the spice trade.
Oh my God.
And I was like, the irony is really rich, guys.
Yeah.
And I asked the audience, I was like, do any of you know why it is ironic that me, a brown Indian girl, is standing here giving you a talk about decolonizing the spice trade?
The Dutch.
No, none of you? Okay, this entire museum was built because the Dutch committed genocide against the Indonesians for spices.
Yeah.
We're aware of that? No? Okay, pay bigger honorariums.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm ranting now. We should talk about
No.
the journey of the company.
No. This is what matters.
Okay.
It's great spices. Go check out Diaspora Co. Buy them all. Empty out the shelves. All of the above. What I care about is Sana. It seems like actually that original sort of kernel of an idea has stayed pretty consistent all the way through. Has that evolved at all for you? Your conception of the company?
So when I started the company, I was a baby gay in that I had just come out. I was not on great terms with my family. I was literally going to all the queer parties, trying to find love. And really starting Diaspora was also about community. I was like, hi, I'm sending out my little signal. Can the other queer food gays come play with me? Can I create space in the world for us to exist?
Yeah.
And that has been beautiful. And luckily, the world changed, I think, for the worse and for the better in that, I have community. I have a partner. I have like established space in my industry. There are a lot of other queer food founders now. So there's not as much like daily like emissions for like, love me, I need space in the world. Like we have power and we've established space, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's changed. By which I mean, like, we were doing like queer mixers in the early years, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. Like, I'm definitely not, unfortunately, hosting queer mixers now. I'm like trying to make my P&L work and like give my team raises. Like, that's more I'm more a traditional CEO now than I was in the early days. In the early days, I think I was a community organizer who sold spices on the side. I am now a spice dealer who is the CEO of like a mid-sized company.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a difference. I've tried to maintain the idealism through that process and maintain the like be self-aware enough to not turn into like all the horror stories you read about and heard about or worked for.
Yeah.
I try. I think I like get it right sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I think the other piece is, when I started it, it was an art project. I was an art student whose like senior thesis was that I studied the spice trade and the tea industry, and I wanted to like create like an installation around that. And then I was like, okay, the like coolest like rendition of that art installation, my senior thesis would be to like actually sell the product. Like the final form of the art project is to sell the thing and engage within capitalism for it. And that meant that I was like collaborating with artists, and, you know, it was beautiful because it allowed me to create this like really vibrant, strong brand. And luckily, my like Gujarati genes were good enough that like the mathed. I'm so glad that like as an art major, my like basic pie chart math still mathed.
Yeah.
That our like cogs were good. They're better now.
Yeah.
But I think now I do have to think a lot more about, okay, like spotlighting this artist is wonderful, but also from like a supply chain operational point of view, what is the most effective way to get beautiful spices to as many people as possible, right? Like I'm just dealing with like the like deeply complex supply chain of it all.
Yeah.
Whereas before I was like, I sell some turmeric on the side and like then I mostly do art installations.
Yeah.
So that's the transformation.
This is going to get very like D2C nerdy for a second. And this has been something that I've observed about Diaspora Co from the outside. You know, we all had that same diagram on our website, right? Of like, it was like, oh, the farmer and you, and then the two lines, right? And it went through, and most of us still do, but
Yeah.
we all kind of started from there. But as companies have had to sort of be out make contact with reality and like with the atmosphere more and more, what's slowly started to become obvious is how much people really meant that chart, each of us individually. And for a lot of companies that was the first thing to go. That mission of being direct trade, being connecting you to the producer was, I mean, the second funding died, it was like, get that the fuck out of here. Like, and it was, we are a brand and we do that. And it all sort of shifted.
Yeah.
But I've always been really struck and impressed by how much Diaspora Co was. And I think it has to do with the fact that you were an art student who felt these issues and felt othered at times and felt, you know, connected to these issues in a very sort of authentic way, and then built a business around that.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, like a banker that is looking at the fucking market and being like, you know, a direct to consumer seems to be taking off. Let's apply that to spices now. Like,
Yeah.
And because in 2017, those two people started businesses that looked very similar.
Yep.
But in 2025, I, at least somebody that's been in the industry, can look at one and look at the other and tell you which one was what.
Yep.
But I've been really struck by how much Diaspora Co has put its money where its mouth is, always.
I want to give the bankers some credit, though.
Sure.
Just a little bit. I don't like to give bankers too much credit.
This is the most unexpected thing you're going to say on this podcast, is you giving bankers credit is a very unexpected thing. Warm Intro is brought to you by WeFunder. WeFunder created this thing called the Community Round that lets you raise money directly from your community. So instead of going to VCs and rich people, angel investors, you can go straight to your friends and your family and your customers. And, you know, this is not a traditional ad read. I used WeFunder for my company 3 times. We ran 3 rounds on WeFunder. We raised over $1 million. And I found that it completely changed how everybody felt about our business. Our customers all of a sudden didn't feel like they were just customers. They felt like they were owners in the business. They shopped with us more. They told their friends about us. My team felt like what we were doing was important because our community had shown up to invest in us. I tell every founder I can find to go raise a We Fund round, especially for companies that care about community. There is nothing greater you can do than letting that community invest. Go to wefunder.com/join to check it out.
Because I knew that like our value proposition and like our social impact to farmers was always going to be my number one. Like I started this to make a good living for myself, but I've been very public about saying that like this is not the business that will make me rich. That is not the point of this company. I would like to buy a house someday, but like my aspirations with like what wealth this business can give me kind of end there. But as a result of like that being the baseline always, we never took financing that would put that at risk, right?
Yeah.
So for the first 5 years, we were completely bootstrapped. Then we raised a round from a family office that was very values aligned and to this day is, and have had our back. Then when we needed a second round of financing, I went to 65 operator angels. And again, to them, I was like, these are our politics. This is our like social impact. This is like the goal I'm trying to attain actually is our farm workers all earning above the living wage. And I need to scale the company 10x in order to attain this goal. So what you're funding is not really like your 4x exit. You're funding me 10xing the business for the farm worker goal. So I was always very clear, and that put off a lot of people, and it meant that I couldn't go to VC, I couldn't go to PE because our funding goals were not aligned, right? If I had taken VC money, I would not still be the CEO of this company in 2025. Like I would have gone bye-bye a long time ago because they would have had to make a return and like exit and get out. So I think, you know, the type of money you take or don't take determines when you're allowed or able to adhere to your values. And I think a lot of like young BIPOC founders don't know that. And I think people are very opaque about that. So like the banker knew that when they were taking, you know, the 7 million in PE funding in 2017, there's a 3-year like horizon on that, right? And if by 2020 like shit wasn't magical, like all the bells and whistles and like all the supply chain frou-frou has to go away for that exit to happen. On the like we all knew that. Unfortunately, the consumer doesn't know that, but like we know that on the back end. So I think, you know, even now when I'm advising founders, I try to be like really cut and dry about it where I'm like, you want to like make 100 mil and exit next year. Like, I love that for you. Go you. I love the ambition. Let's go. Take PE money, don't talk about farmers or values or like try to make everything like equitable and magical. Like social impact work is like generational work. I don't know a social impact business that has like made tremendous intergenerational impact in under 5 years. That just doesn't exist. Like I actually don't think I have a single example of that. There was all the like, I don't know, pure water. Like there was all these like businesses where they were like, you buy coffee from us, we'll like give clean water to everybody. And like in 2 years,
the Tom's model, right?
The Tom's model just replicated infinitely, but like Tom's is like still existing and like they didn't sell in 2 years, you know? So I think if you're basing it on impact, you have to be playing the long game. If you're not interested in the long game, don't talk about impact. Separate things.
Oh man, there's so much good stuff in what you said. I think this is gold
advice. This is the juice
for founders. So this is really fantastic. I think the first principle, if I could just spelling it out more than you already did.
You synthesize, I drink water.
Okay. Well, one really core idea of like, look, you can start a values-based business and you can stick to your values. Or you can start a completely commercial enterprise and you can remain a completely commercial enterprise. But know which one you're doing and be clear about it. And I think that was the thing that a lot of businesses did not do. In the sort of the era that we were coming up in. And I think that's one thing. And that's, you sign yourself up for a world of pain. I don't even think it was that the founders were lying to customers. I think they were lying to themselves about 100%. What they were really about. Because, you know, to trace this back a little bit, I think a lot of this comes from this very like 80s Milton Friedman-y sort of conception of business, right? Where it is, I think if you've picked at the average American just on the street, or average person, honestly, at this point, and asked them, what is the point of business? What is the point of a business? They would say the point of a business is to make money.
To make money, 100%.
And I don't even want to really debate that point, but I think like, there is no other variable in that description. Right? There is no concept of like, okay, well, maybe the point is to make as much money as you can while also serving this other goal, right? Maybe the point is to make enough money so that you can serve this other goal. It is an extremely flattened out description of what a business should be. And that is what a lot of entrepreneurs of our generation came up with.
Yeah.
And so to me, yeah, they can talk a big game about values, but what matters is you will reach a point. Every single founder will reach a point where your professed values come up in contact with your sort of commercial interests. And that's when you find out what you're made of. That's when you find out who you really are. That's when you find out how good the turmeric really is, right? And again, I think that this is something Diaspora Co has been really great about. I want to specifically double click on a couple of decisions that you took. And I want to try to understand them.
I'm scared.
No, they're all good things.
What did I do?
It's all that. It would be crazy for me at this point in the podcast to pull out just dirt.
To pull out the dirt, yeah.
But tell me about the decision to pay for farmers' healthcare. In those early days, where did that come from? Presumably you didn't have a ton of money to do that with. How did
I never have money.
How did you think to do that?
So I was at the turmeric harvest, I think in 2019. I might have my years mixed up. And the women who harvest the Casa Renini Farms turmeric are just wonderful. But I was noticing that every one of them was ailing in some way. Either diabetic complications or cancer or straight up malnourishment or, the like compounding effect of doing all of the physical and emotional and house labor for 3 generations, just causing like debilitating illness. So I was just like seeing it and it felt terrible where I was like, actually, I don't know that like, okay, so I have to backtrack a little bit. The average pay for a farm worker across India is 350 rupees per day. That is $3, $4.2 a day, I think. In order to be above the poverty line and thrive, you need to be above $5 a day. So the goal is $5 a day. Yeah. When we did the math on what it would cost our farmers within this like really broken system to pay all of their workers $5 a day year round, it was not possible, which is a really sad reality. Yeah. So to this day, that is not the norm on our farms. They are not earning $5 a day. Wow. And therefore, when I talked about the investment I took, in order for us to be able to pay our farmers enough and give them enough business, in order for them to pay all of their workers $5 a day, we have to the revenue that we are today, we have to 10x in size.
Wow.
Because only with 10xing in size can I give those farmers enough scale to justify paying their labor fairly. That tells you how broken the system is on every level. I think I run like a pretty like good operation. We pay all of our people well, like our maths, and we still can't fix the system without scale. So therefore, like the only way I could think of to temporarily solve a little bit of the system, but not even that much, was, all right, well, what is it going to cost to get health insurance for these 30 workers? Actually, in India, not that much, you know? I think it's like 18,000 rupees per person. So 18,000 is what, like
250?
It's actually exactly $210 now. With the exchange rate has gone woo. So $210 per person multiplied by 30. Yeah. That's not much. Yeah. So actually, it's cheaper for me to provide the health insurance than solve like their salary woes for the rest of the year across all of my farms. Yeah. Not to say that I shouldn't try to solve like the systemic salary problem. I am just one person and I just cannot solve as yet. So I saw the healthcare as like a stopgap, you know? Unfortunately, the healthcare program ran from, I think, 2019 to 2024, and we stopped doing it. And the reason we stopped doing it is because the workers that Prabhu was working with, he was able to bring them all full time.
That's great.
And so he was able to move them from this like seasonal work model where he was only like hiring them sometimes to he was like, actually, like I need 15 people full time now. I have enough work to like justify that. And as a result, they're being paid enough, like their needs are met. And he was like, they can actually kind of like afford their own medicines. Like they're okay. And now there's a government program that like supplements to it. So the system stopped needing that intervention. And so now we're taking like the farm worker fund money, which used to be the healthcare money, and we're applying it to build segregated bathrooms for men and women on the farm. For the workers. So it's like, okay, well, where's the next place that we can use what in the US is a small amount of money, like 5 to 10K, to have a very large amount of impact in India. And I think there, the mistake a lot of American companies make is like us with our like fancy degrees and our English speaking bullshit, like think we have the answers. And we absolutely do not have the answers. And so we had to hire somebody who spoke the tribal language or like a certain regional language that the workers did or spoke, have them have like separate like talking and survey sessions with the workers away from their employer in order to understand what their biggest need was. And then our job, like with me as the buyer, was to rally the farmer to make sure that the farmer's needs were being met. You know?
Wow.
So it is a multiple step process. And I feel like we have to like limit how much we do of that because that would take away from my full-time job of actually selling their spices. But that's the job, to actually do it well.
Wow. Can you explain to me a little bit of let's get in the weeds a little bit of what Diaspora Co is today? Tell me about it. How many spices are you selling? How many farms? Presumably you can't tell me the total scale of the business, but just tell me about what is happening on a daily basis, the kind of miracles that you all are pulling off.
Okay. It's a very complicated supply chain.
Sure.
So we have about 30 spices and then 10 blends. Those 10 blends have anywhere from 7 to 17 ingredients that we have to source to blend them. Those are all being blended in Mumbai, but we have all of our spices get manufactured on farm. So that's an important distinction because most people, when they work with farms, they'll buy like fresh chilies or like fresh turmeric or, I don't know, a thing of ginger, and then they'll transport it fresh to a factory somewhere, like a centralized factory, and process it and turn it into powder and sell it to a consumer. Our thinking was if we like empower our farm partners to process themselves, we can pay them an extra $1 per kilogram. And again, we did the math and I was like, I can give them a 5K loan to build a mill on their farm and then pay them $1 more per kilogram to like own the means of processing. And what that is great from an impact point of view, but it is also great from like a quality and final product point of view. And that is what like most like Milton Friedman, stone cold capitalists miss is when you buy a raw material and you process it yourself and then you sell it, the farmer is not responsible for the final product. So there's no sense of pride or responsibility for what gets to the customer. And they can just be like, oops, you must have messed it up at some point. You know, our farmers are giving our customers what they cook with in their kitchens. So they take a great deal of pride in what they're processing and creating because they know that there's no intervention between like when it left the farm to when it got to the customer. So that has actually been one of our strongest quality control tools, which in turn make more money. So that's nitty-gritty number one. Then what is the structure of the business? We started with one farm. We now work with 140.
Wow.
For
India and Sri Lanka, all of them?
All India and Sri Lanka. And why India and Sri Lanka? It's because we're able to go deep, right? Like our team speaks almost every single language of the farmers that we work with.
Wow.
Whereas if I was bringing in ingredients from Vietnam or Indonesia, both incredible spice growing regions, I don't speak Vietnamese. I don't know anything. So I can't like problem solve with them as deeply at all. Therefore, I can't have as much impact. Therefore, my product will not be as good. So we have definitely chosen to go deep. So why, if we have 30 spices, why 140 farms? It started out that it was like one spice, one farm, right? But as we scaled, we had to create micro co-ops. So for example, we now source turmeric from 3 farms. So Prabhu, our original farmer, and 2 of his cousins. We source cinnamon from a central farm that we have always worked with, who then they have like these 5 ladies who are their sourcing ladies, who basically like source from all of their neighbors and do physical taste tests at the factory, where they're tasting cinnamon from neighbors' farms to check whether it like meets the Diaspora quality standard of cinnamon. The palate fatigue from that is outrageous, and they're like experts at it. So, you know, that becomes a co-op of like 30 farms supplying to us. So that's the supply chain. And then I think the piece that has changed the most is when I started, I had like Syed, my dude. He's our director of India operations, and he's been with me since day one of the company. And I had almost nobody else in India. And then we built out a team here, and we had everything from like customer service, sales, marketing, everything here. And over the years, I just found that that didn't work. Where our team of storytellers, our team of customer service, everything actually needed to be closer to farm than it needed, and closer to origin and the story we're trying to tell, than closer to market. And so we have a 6-person team here. We're very small here. And we have a 25-person team in India.
Wow.
So my entire marketing team, except for me, sits in India, and they just do a phenomenal job. We have 3 designers on our team. They're incredible. We have our sales team is in India and here. Ops is India and here. Finance is India and here.
I'm going to talk some shit on your behalf. All right.
Okay.
There's this kind of,
on my behalf.
There's this thing, because it would be, as the CEO of the company, I don't think you could do this.
Okay.
But there's this sort of argument that I see a lot online, where when people hear folks like you and folks like me with you know, kind of more progressive, I would say more liberal values, right? There's this sort of knee-jerky reaction that a lot of, I think, like, it's kind of a boomery reaction to be like, oh, you know, that doesn't work in the real world. That isn't, you know, that's not, you know, it's like dudes with like School of Hard Knocks in education in their like Facebook profile. To be like, yeah, you know, they don't come in contact. That's not how business works. That's not how the world works. And I fucking dare anyone. I dare any one of those dudes with School of Hard Knocks in their Facebook profile to go out and run a business as operationally complex as yours. Because
across 2 time zones that are 12 and a half hours apart.
No, that is a beast of a business.
It's ridiculous.
That is an insane business to run. And to do it, it's operationally insane. I mean that in a good way.
In a respectful way.
I actually, that's the thing. Like the most impressive operations I have are the most insane operations I have, right? It is an operational beast of a business to run. And the job that you all do with the marketing and the storytelling is so, I mean, you just have your auteurs about it, and you're so refined and so good at it. And so I think this gets lost perhaps sometimes, and when people hear the values of the business, they miss how just fucking like Jiro dreams of sushi, like perfect precision you need to have to be able to do this kind of thing well. So I just wanted to give you the flowers there.
I appreciate that so much, but I have an addition where my partner is a surgeon, and like his whole world is like, they all went to med school when they were in their early 20s, and they like lived the conventional track. And so when I'll be in like these like hospital-y, Stanford-y environments, and they'll be like, oh, you run a spice business. Oh, that's so sweet. You know, and they're like, I think there's like a feminization of it. And there's just like a inherent looking down of it, because it's like, it's in the realm of like cute stuff. Not like we cut bodies for a living, you know? And it usually takes, and I have to like be like, hi, yes, of course. And it usually takes 15 to 20 minutes for the penny to drop for them. And I feel like I can just be straight up immodest about it, where I'm just like, in 15 minutes, they figure out that I run a very legit company, and I'm like a very legit CEO, running like a very impressive operation, quite frankly. And especially for the men, usually I think the women are more tolerable about it, but like the men will go from being like, oh, hi, sweetie, what's your hobby? And like almost not making eye contact with me and like choosing to talk to my partner. To then being like, To talk business to me, bro.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's talk about P&Ls, man.
Yeah.
And like immediately start like broing and manning me. And I'm like, yeah, I can bro out with you about a P&L, dude. Like, you could have talked to me about that 15 minutes ago, but like you put me in a box and like you missed the opportunity entirely.
Yeah.
So I do think that like as a measure of like being in the food space, being a female founder, and like it sounding cute, people don't understand the like sheer slog that is our job.
Oh, totally. Sorry to cut you off, but I just this is evoking strong emotions for me. I remember because people would think, and of course I think you definitely got a much worse version of this, but people would think that I was running like a cute sort of like because it's creative and it's like we care a lot about design and it's it's like people are shopping with us. Like how rough could it be? And people would tell me, be like, oh, dude, you must have so much fun. I was like, you know what I'm dealing with right now? A fucking container got stolen. Okay, somebody stole a container worth $100,000, and I'm talking to 7 different police departments in the country right now. Yeah. Okay, it is as uncute as it can get. Or we would.
We had to drive through the Los Angeles fires in order to rescue this year's pepper harvest. Jesus. So like, if we did not like drive literally through LA fires that like destroyed homes, nobody would have had pepper this year. That's not cute. Yeah. Nothing about that is cute. Yeah. It's horrible.
God, you have to deal with demurrage and tariffs and container ships. And like, I mean, we had a chocolatier on the podcast, and I think he'd be comfortable with me sharing this. His job is viewed as very like, there's so much beauty and so much grace to it and all that. And if you talk to him, I asked him, I said, on the podcast, Todd, what do your days look like? Like, how do you plan them? And he said, I go into my day with no plan. I go in, I have adapted to this mode of living and work where I expect nothing off my day. And I just go in and, I guess the freezer caught on fire or whatever. I guess all the inventory got stolen. Yeah. I guess the supplier got kidnapped. I'm adding that last one on my own. But point is that
we have like fraud happening on the cardamom farms. We have like politicians like, I don't know, threatening people. Like there's all kinds, there's money laundering left and right. Like there's all kinds of drama. It's really funny that you mention Todd and Dandelion Chocolate because I work in the industry, right? Like and I would argue that me and Todd's jobs are not dissimilar from each other. They're actually very similar. And yet I get the Dandelion Instagram and marketing messages, and I think that the Dandelion team must be like frolicking through fields of chocolate. So even I fall for the bullshit, even though I'm meant to see through it. Yeah. Because like I see their like whimsical, magical marketing with like the most beautiful packaging known to mankind. I'm like, wow, like their life must be like drawing astrological illustrations for their, what is it? Their advent calendar. Like their viral ad. Like that's what I imagine Todd's days. And obviously Todd is like really hustling and like dealing with fires. Yeah. But,
exactly. I think we also had a chef on who's our age, so he's early 30s, and he has 2 Michelin stars. And after The Bear came out, this is not going to be surprising to anybody, but that's another job where so much beauty on the plate. Yeah. The people's experience of that job, as consumers of it, is only as like an art form and like, oh my God, so wow, they're doing poetry on a plate. And meanwhile, back in the kitchen, it is as rough a job as you can imagine. This whole thing, like shooting this stuff, gaffers do manual labor. I one time, to save money on a shoot, I was like, I'll be our gaffer and I'll carry stuff around up and down New York. I've never worked out that. It was like CrossFit doesn't come close. To make anything beautiful requires such extraordinary effort. Yeah. And I'm always struck by that. And to me, that doesn't make it less beautiful. To me, like, and this might as well be, out of the Diaspora brand book. Like, to me, the deep human effort needed. And the attention to detail, the painstaking attention to detail needed to make something beautiful, makes it more beautiful, not less.
Because that's what farming is, you know? And like, that's kind of the whole point is like, we get these like little orange powders or like little powders called spices that we like sprinkle onto our food. And we have no idea that it was grown in the ground, harvested at a particular time of year, painstakingly processed.
Yeah.
You know, like you go to the saffron harvest and you're just like, which completely mentally ill person came up with the idea to like harvest 3 stigmas out of a saffron flower and turn that into a spice? Why?
Yeah.
Like you didn't want to just like, I don't know, use orange juice? Like you need to use the flower juice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This is, we'll link this in the show notes. People should just go and watch saffron get everybody that's like, oh my God, why is saffron so expensive? Watch how it's made, dude.
Yeah.
Because you'll want to pay double for it. Like it's crazy. I've seen some of Diaspora Co's videos on it too. It gives you such an appreciation for this stuff. And I think bringing this back to, I think what you're doing and where I think it does really relate to what's happened with coffee, right? With third wave coffee. Like there was this conception, I think if you asked in the 80s, maybe even 90s, the average American's experience of coffee, Folgers off of a supermarket shelf, was of it almost as an inorganic substance. I mean, like it wasn't, they didn't read it as something that was ever alive, right? They read it as like a rock that exists. And I think
they still read spices that way.
Exactly.
People think that turmeric is like a chemical compound that just appeared.
Precisely.
And I'm like, no, it was a plant and you harvested it and then did the
Exactly. Yeah. No, you beat me to the punch. That's exactly that. I think with spices, our understanding is still very second wave. And I know the moment.
First wave, right?
Oh, first wave. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
We're deeply first wave.
I know the moment that I tasted really good coffee for the first time that wasn't Folgers. Actually, you know, what am I doing talking shit about America? This was my first experience of coffee. Okay?
Wasn't it like Cafe Coffee Day or Barista?
Oh, God. You were bougier than me then, Sana. My parents gave me, I would stay up late and work at night or like study. And my parents gave me this coffee machine that was gifted to them during their wedding because nobody in my family drank coffee.
Yeah.
So I had a 25-year-old coffee machine, and they were like, "Oh, here's a bag of coffee somebody gave us like I think 5 years ago."
Yeah.
So the first coffee I really started drinking was I would brew it in my room. I would brew black coffee that was 5 years old, and I was like, I love it. I don't even know what it had left at that point. But I remember the first time that I tasted like true good coffee. And I think everyone owes it to themselves to have that same moment with spices.
Yeah.
I think people owe it to themselves to. I went to Kerala last year, and I brought back some.
I was there 3 days ago.
Oh, look at that! It's for people that don't know. That's where peppers are originally from, along with a lot of other spices. And oh my God, the experience of like you haven't really tasted any of these spices until you've tasted them from that part of the world, and you tasted them fresh. You've been working with like rough approximations of what these flavors are and not the actual thing ever.
So growing up, for me, black pepper was the thing that came in like the cardboard tube that said catch.
Yeah.
And it was pre-powdered.
Yeah.
And the only use I thought there was for black pepper was that on the like once a week when my nanny made tomato soup with croutons, we would put like a little compulsory thing of black pepper on top. And that's just because like the British clubs used to do it that way. You know, they had like the canned tomato soup with the little croutons and like a little thing of black pepper on top. And I would always like, what is the black bits and why do we have it?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that it was supposed to have flavor. I thought it was like just a visual thing that you're supposed to have the black flecks on top of the tomato soup. And I was like, it tastes like blah.
Yeah.
And then the experience of like our black pepper, which is like vine ripened and like, you know, beautifully harvested and like basically like a fully ripe fruit that has like notes of like fig and jam. It's just like different complete universes of pepperdom.
Yeah, no, it's going from a one-dimensional or zero-dimensional thing on it. Those little packets they give you at restaurants are like the fact that it gets packed in with the plastic fork, knife, and napkin should tell you everything. I mean,
tells you the level of industrialization that like product has gone through to get to you.
There's this diner in San Francisco, and this is an unnecessary. This story's not going to pay off. There's this diner in San Francisco called Silver Crest Diner. It's owned by this Greek man who's I think in his mid 80s or mid 90s, and their claim to fame is that they're open 24 hours. They do not need to be open 24 hours. Nobody's there most hours of the day. but it is a beautiful relic of a place, and they've been around for 50, 60 years, and he is asleep at the counter most of the time until you walk in. But if you get coffee from him, he'll give you a pack of coffee, and just from the branding, you can tell that this was made in the 80s or 90s. Like, and I think that one day we will, the experience of drinking that coffee is how I hope we'll one day feel about spices the way that they're served to the average American, right? Just like, oh yeah, you're working on it. But I want to actually, let's bring this back to you. Now, enough with my thoughts on cardamom, which, by the way, actually, I guess 2 more thoughts on cardamom.
Okay.
People should listen to, I think Kumail Nanjiani have you seen this bit of his where he talks about, he's like, look, Americans, you can use turmeric, it's fine, you can use cardamom, but like, please use it right. Like, you're just, it's not, turmeric's not supposed to go in sweets. Like, what are you doing? And it just, anyway, great. People should check it out. But I want to bring this back to you. So you were 22 when you started the business. You are 30, 31
32.
now? 32. Just very candid. Do you ever regret spending your 20s doing this? Do you ever feel like you could have had more fun? You could have done something lighter?
No, I had so much fun. No. I mean, I think I just grew so much. And when I started the company, the thing that I said, so when I told my dad that I wanted to quit my job at Buy Right, he was like, if you leave like such a good job that, you know, aligns all your interests, like 6 months in, you're always going to quit. Like, you'll never stick with something. Yeah. And I was like, Dad, I'm just bored. And like, I want a job where I'm not bored. It's been nearly 10 years, and man, have I never been bored. And, you know, I wake up every morning, and I have to solve really, really, really big problems that I don't know the answer to at all. Yeah. And usually, like, just barely have the skill set to solve for. Yeah. You know, and that's really fun. So I do think that I also like naturally have the risk tolerance of an absolute psycho. And so this business is very well suited for me. And my COO, bless her heart, runs this business, has the risk tolerance of like a small field mouse. Yeah. And like the difference of those risk tolerances, it is the secret sauce. Yeah. Because she and I are always pushing the tension of the risk tolerance really, really tight. Where I'm like, we're just going to leap. And she's like, we're going to make 12 plans. And that's what makes the magic happen.
Sana, if you were a spice, what spice would you be? Have you been asked that before?
So much.
Fuck, man, I thought that was so. I didn't have my notes.
It's not original.
All right, cut it. Don't answer it. Okay, no, actually answer it, please. People haven't heard this.
Okay, good question.
We're gonna cut out the part where you said you've been asked that. It's gonna go straight to good question. Yeah.
I feel like nowadays I'm team tandoori masala.
Okay.
Our tandoori masala has 16 ingredients in it, including saffron, which is like a bougie addition that nobody needs.
Yeah,
but I'm like, woo, saffron.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's also like, it's smoky and spicy and umami. So I feel like it's very well-rounded. And I'm into that. Because the other ones, like, I'm not turmeric. I'm not like yellow.
I like that you had this like very abstracted out explanation for the tandoori sauce, but for turmeric it's very practical. Okay, sure.
It's a little one note.
Yeah.
Or like pepper is like a little too like all-purpose for me, you know? Like I'm definitely a little bit of an acquired taste. Yeah. So I just feel like tandoori masala, especially after you taste it, it applies.
Okay, I love that. And thank you for asking what I would be. I think.
I was contemplating whether to ask it. Right now I was sitting here being like, do I need to ask him back or can we just move over from this? But you want it to be asked back, so please tell me.
I'm shattered right now at the fact that you've been asked this question before. I thought I was killing it. This was going to be the highlight of the episode for me, was asking you that. I don't know what I would be. I'd probably be like salt or something. I have no idea. Nobody cares. Okay, let's come back to you. Okay, I have one final question for you, right? So years from now, you and I have both we're both dirt just being used at a cardamom field somewhere.
Okay.
What do you hope your work is remembered as? How do you hope you're remembered? Yeah, that.
I just got on the drive up here. I was on a 1.5 hour long conversation with my mom about like the patriarchy and emotional labor. And so I think that's like fresh in my mind right now. But I think in my childhood, despite having progressive privileged parents, there was a lot of constraints on what women could be and what young girls were allowed to dream about doing. And even to this day, like, I see the imagination of my peers, specifically who are women or like femmes, being curtailed by like what they see as possible or like what their families expect of them or what their partners expect of them. And so I think if the like narrative shift can be towards like being a femme presenting woman who is also independent and ambitious and loving and able to be maternal and parent and run a company, but not do it in a way that is like self-sacrificial or like involves martyrdom or involves a complete lack of sleep and like, you know, an abandonment of like all self-care. I think that would be really wonderful because I think that would like provide a model that we could move ahead with that is just a lot more equal and fair and feminist. So right now that's top of mind. I think long term, I just want my kids to feel loved, really. I don't really care about the business of it all. But yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Sana, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks. This was wild. I feel like we went on like a 90-minute, like, woo.
That was great.
It was really fun.
Yeah, the only reason I ended it was because Jiwan gave me
you saw the time you were like, wrap this shit up.
No, because you got places. Warm Intro is produced by Jiwan Moon. Audio and video by Jin Han. Production help by Danielle Ibarra. Hosted by me, Chai Mishra. Cool.